Hey guys, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Planners Who Profit podcast. We love this podcast. We can't believe we're already in the double digits, and you guys, the feedback has been phenomenal. So, we're so excited that you're here. If this is your first time watching the podcast, just pin this, save this, like this, make sure you subscribe because the feedback so far has been amazing just with the first 10 episodes. And we want to make sure that you don't miss another episode. All right. But the Planners Who Profit podcast is a part of our suite of programs here at Planners Who Profit. We have our Planners Who Profit Accelerator, Planners Who Profit Live, our annual live event every April. And then, of course, we have the Planners Who Profit podcast, and we're so excited that you're here. If you're new, welcome. My name is Feyisola, and I will be your host throughout this podcast. I am the owner of Statuesque Events. For those of you watching on video, as you can see, Statuesque Events behind me. We are an event planning company that is based in the DC metro area, but we service events all across the East Coast, all across the United States, and all across the world. We've done events from Connecticut to Florida to LA to Texas and pretty much everywhere in between. And we love producing modern multicultural weddings for our clients. I'm also the creator of Planners Who Profit, the program. We are so excited about this program. Our clients who've implemented have seen anywhere from 2x to 10x or even more, right, of revenue in their businesses within a short period of time, right? Just from implementing the things that we've given them. And we love sharing just a little bit of what they get right here in the podcast. All right. Now, I'm really excited. We're going to be diving into the different kinds of contract terms that you need depending on the stage of business. I think this is super important because, of course, here in the Planners Who Profit podcast, we're the home of next level programs for event planners. We do specialize in programming for experienced event planners. Our accelerator, you have to apply. You've got to be experienced to get in and for these things to work for you, right? But at each level of business, whether you're just starting out or if you've been in business for 10 years, there are certain contracts you need to have in place. There's some legal protection that you need, right? And I'm really excited to get into it today. We're going to be talking about the different levels of business and what you need to protect yourself at each level, right? Because the other thing is that it is possible, right? A lot of times people get discouraged about going into business because it's like, it's so expensive. There's so much to pay for. I got to hire a lawyer and hire this and hire that. And it's like, I get it. But, at different levels, there's different risk levels as well. And, sometimes it may be easier to start with certain things when you're first starting out. But as you grow, you got to keep certain things in mind to go get for your business. All right. So I'm really excited. We're going to be getting into legal protection. I am not a lawyer. This is not a substitute for legal advice. All the disclaimers, you cannot sue me for what we're going to be learning today, but I'm going to be sharing basically what you need to have. Now, when you speak to your lawyer, they may add a few other things on top that you got to add in addition because of your situation. But these are the basics at the different levels of business that you want to have in place and go from there. All right. So stay tuned. This is going to be so good. We're going to have a super brief break. So stay tuned. And then right after that, I'm going to start getting into the teaching. All right. Yes, let's get protected. And I'll see you after the break. If you're an event planner who does amazing work, I'm talking your family, your friends, and your clients tell you that you do an amazing job, and you bring everything across the finish line and plan the most beautiful events. But now you're ready to actually make real money in your business and pay yourself monthly? It's time for you to apply to join the Planners Who Profit Accelerator program. This 6-month accelerator program gives you the tools that you need to hit your first $70,000 to $100,000 a year, even if you are still working a full-time job. Our goal is to help you to build a profitable business so that you can leave your day job on your terms. To learn more about working with us in the Planners Who Profit Accelerator, make sure you visit plannerswhoprofit.com and apply. By the way, if you've already exceeded 100,000 in sales, please go ahead and apply, and we'll let you know all the information about joining the Planners Who Profit Mastermind, designed to take you to even higher heights. We look forward to seeing you on the inside because life is so much better in the PWP squad. All right. Welcome back from the break. I'm really excited to get into the meat, right? And we're going to talk about legal protection and why legal protection is important. I do want to say that your contract, your legal protection is super important because this is what stipulates what you're going to be giving your clients. This is what protects you in the event of a lawsuit. Here's the thing. Getting sued is unlikely. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to sit here and act like everybody gets sued. I have never been sued. I pray to never be sued. And there's a lot of things that you can do to avoid getting sued in the first place, right? We talk about that a lot in my program about what it means to actually hold people, to certain expectations and all of that. However, when stuff hits the fan, things move really fast. And it's really important to have your protection in place in the event that things go crazy. You don't want to, you don't want to get to a point where you're like, I wish someone told me. Right? You don't want to have a situation where someone's threatening to sue you or suing you and you're like, I wish someone told me that all of this was at risk, right? So legal protection is really, really, really important. There's multiple layers. So yes, this podcast was focused on this podcast is primarily focused on contracts that you need. But before I get into the specific contracts that you need, I want to talk about some basic things that you probably need to have in place before you get a contract for the contract to really work for you. Number one, it is important to know that if you have not created a separate entity for your business, meaning that a separate entity means it could be as simple as an LLC, it can be an incorporation, it can be an S corp, but a separate entity that has its own tax ID number, right? Businesses have tax ID numbers. They're called EINs, electronic identification number. No, employer identification number, sorry. But businesses have their own tax ID numbers, and then you have your social security number. If you have not separated that, what that means is that in the event, which is probably unlikely that you get sued, all your personal assets are open, which means that if you own a home, if you own a car, if you got $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 saved in your personal bank accounts, all of that is up for grabs in the event that you are sued and in the event that the plaintiff wins. That's not a good place to be, right? Because at the end of the day, you're doing business. You need to separate your business from your personal. All right. So for anyone out there who's like, well, I just let people slide money under the table. I just let people, pay into my personal business account. And for anyone out there who's just like, I just feel like it's okay. This is what you're risking. And yes, it is easier to just use your personal business account. It's easier, but to a degree, it's easier to get the money. It gets a lot harder when it's time to file your taxes and separate your business expenses and prove that it's an actual business expense. But I get it, but at a certain point, if you're really trying to level up, you need to level up all your things. And at a certain point, you need to go get some sort of separate business entity, right? It's not necessarily a legal thing. You don't need a lawyer to create an LLC or anything like that. You can register with your state and with the IRS, but it's an important first step, right? That way your contracts are written in your business name and not your personal name, because that's another thing. You can have a business entity, but if all your contracts say that it's between you, the person, and someone else, as opposed to it being between the business and the person who's entering the contract, that's another way that you're opening yourself up. All right. So these are some foundational things that need to be in place and that frankly needed to be said. You want to make sure that, you have your ducks in a row, right? And you have things in place, right? So that's the first thing. Make sure you go ahead, you go ahead and open that LLC, S corp, corporation, whatever your tax advisor recommends. Go ahead and open that, right? And then the second thing that you want to do is make sure that when you get your contracts, when you get these contract templates we're about to talk about and everything, you want to make sure that you are writing it on behalf of your business and not you, the person. Now, you're still going to have to sign as a person, but you're signing on behalf of your business, not signing on behalf of you, the person, because you don't want to expose your personal assets, right? You and your husband or you and your brother and you and your sister, whoever you're living with, that you guys co-own houses, you don't want to expose all of that, right? You need to protect yourself by having separate entities. So that's, pro tip number one, foundational, right? Before we get into all of this is something that's really, really, really important, right? That you want to make sure you have in place. Now, the second thing, now we're ready to get into the meat of it, right? So the three levels of business growth and the contracts that you need at each level, right? So the first level of business growth is what I call you're becoming profitable or at least breaking even, right? So this means that you're making you're making up to maybe 50K a year, anywhere from like 30 to 50K a year, maybe 25 to 50K a year in your event planning business, right? From that, you should be able to pay yourself something. You should. If you're not, something's wrong. You should be able to pay yourself something, whether that's 500 a month, even possibly 1,000 a month if you're keeping your expenses low. But you should be paying yourself something. You're kind of profitable. Profitable means you're paying yourself, right? It's not a full-time salary and all that good stuff, but you should be there. At this stage, you're probably doing a certain number of events a year, maybe like 5, somewhere between 5 to 10 at the very most at this level. And at this stage, you are the event planning company, right? You are the lead planner at every single event. And your coordinators, you have other people who are supporting you as assistants, but you are leading every event. You're doing the core work, right? The minimum contract that you need at this level is you need an event planning agreement. It needs to be something other than just like a one-page document that you made up, or even something that you got for free online. You need something that's tailored to you as an event planner in this industry, right? And for those of you who may not have caught on to this, we're adding a resources section on our website at plannerswhoprofit.com/podcast. We're adding a whole resources section for all the resources that we've mentioned throughout this podcast. So you can easily go there and browse different things. So we are adding a link to our legal expert, right, who we recommend that you purchase contracts from. These are contracts that are literally tailored to you as an event planner. These are not generic templates. That's the problem with these general templates out there. These are tailored to you. That are tailored to our situations. The fact that we're planning events for anywhere from 3 months to 12, 18 months, like they're tailored to you and to different situations there, right? So you want to go ahead and make sure you have an event planning agreement, one that's reviewed by a lawyer, and one that is thorough. Now, again, now some of you might be like, oh, well, I have a lawyer. That's great too. I recommend still buying a template and reviewing it with your lawyer. I can guarantee you that buying a template and then having your in-house lawyer review it for like 30 minutes is going to be significantly cheaper than you having like a whole suite of meetings with your lawyer to draft this custom agreement for you. Right? That could easily be thousands of dollars, where you can buy an event planning agreement for hundreds or a little over 100, right? And then have a lawyer review it for half of an hour and bill you for half of an hour. That it's night and day. And I think that that's something to keep in mind. Also, just because you have a lawyer doesn't mean that your lawyer is familiar with your industry and with some of the common issues that come up and some of the common challenges. That can happen and that can kind of bite you in the butt, right? So going with a template and then having your lawyer review it, hey, that's what takes it from an A to an A plus. But literally, if to get an A, go ahead and start with the contract templates that we have listed in our resources section. So that's number one. If you're at that beginning stage, like you're getting serious, you're probably getting serious about your business. Like, man, I'm making money, right? I'm making 25K a year, I'm making 50K a year. That's great. To be honest, a lot of event planners aren't even there yet. So you're doing pretty good, right? And you're probably looking to grow that. You got to protect it though. And so this is a good place to start, right? It's a no-brainer to spend under $300 to protect a $50,000 business, right? That you're looking to grow even further, right? So that's number one. And number two, the second layer is what we like to call like you can start thinking about going full time. It doesn't mean you have to. In our program, we've had multiple people hit what we call the six-figure club. Some of them have chosen to go full time, and some of them have not. Some of them are like, you know what, I'm still balancing my business with my day job, and I just like having the two incomes. It's up to you, but at least you have the option to do it at this level. And what this looks like is that you're making at least $70,000 a year. And in most cases, you're making at least over 125K. At that point, you're able to pay yourself like at least, anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 a month, which covers most people's living expenses. Now, if you're single, your living expenses are higher. If you are living with your parents, if you are married, if you have a roommate, your living expenses are lower. So what most people need to make a full-time living is somewhere between $3,500 and $5,500 a month, right? And to get there, you need to make at a minimum 70K, and and if you're on the higher end, about 125K a year. That's what it takes. After your expenses, after your taxes, after all of that, to pay yourself, that's what it looks like, right? And so when you're in that stage, chances are, number one, of course, you have clients, so you definitely need your event planning agreement. But the second thing that you need is that you need a non-solicitation agreement, because by the time you've gotten to this level, you have you either have a contractor or a part-time employee who is, managing a lot of things on your behalf. They have access to a lot of information, and you need to know that they are not stealing your clients, right? Like, let's say you have an admin who's also an event planner, right? And you need to know that when someone inquires, that they're not on the side sending them a separate email saying, hey, instead of working with her, you could work with me, right? You need to have that non-solicitation in place, which some people may also call a non-compete. A non-compete is technically different. A non-compete usually means that, this person can't run the same kind of business that you're running. But if the wording basically says non-solicitation, which is that you can run your business all you want, just don't steal my clients, that's essentially a non-solicitation agreement. And that's something that you want to definitely have in place. It's crucial. Because at this stage, you're getting to the point that you're busy enough that you need other support, right? And you want to make sure that they are not jeopardizing your business. They're not harming your business. They're not tearing you down. They're not stealing your clients, right? And so that's something that, yes, most people won't do it, but some people will. And in a lot of cases, you don't find out that they've been doing it until like a lot of time has passed. So you can protect yourself legally to be able to say that I literally did not allow this by what you do, right? By having agreements in place that allow you then to pursue action or to rightfully terminate the person if the person is an employee and all these different things, right? So that's something that you definitely want to have in place, and you want to make it clear, right? If somebody does start breaching, getting close to that issue, you can say, hey, when I took you on, you signed this agreement that said this. Please go back, look at the agreement. You signed this, right? So this is a problem. So we're not going back and forth. This was the agreement we entered, and this is still in place. Right. So that's something that you want to have in place as you're growing your business, and you have other people supporting you, especially really close admin roles if they're involved with sales, especially at that level. Now, the third level that I want to share is when you are in well into the six-figure club, right? And at this point, you have other people leading events on your behalf. Like they're working events and you're not showing up at the events, or they're working with the clients and maybe you pop in for a little bit and you pop out, right? At that point, you need to add more. Yes, you have your event planning agreement for each client. Yes, you have your non-solicitation agreement that they can't go in and solicit your clients, but also you have your independent contractor agreement for the people who are managing work on your behalf, right? I mean, because these are people who are working with your clients from beginning to end. These are people who are they're very embedded in your business, and you have to like draw the lines of this is what you're doing. This is going to be the pay. This is the structure. This is the frequency for each of the clients we assign to you. You guys have to agree before you get into this agreement. You don't want something wishy-washy. You don't want to ask somebody if they can do it, and then they say, yeah, and then halfway through you guys are arguing about how much they're getting paid, or you're arguing about the fact that they don't get exposure for their brand while they're working on an event for your brand. You want to make sure that certain things are very clear, because these are people who are they're kind of embedded in your business, right? And these are all normal things. I tell people all the time that these are normal things. I worked for multiple technology companies, multiple million and billion-dollar technology companies that leverage contractors, right? And that had contractors who were there for anywhere from a year to 10 years, right? Like long-term contractors. And that's a normal thing. It's a normal thing. It happens sometimes, right? And sometimes it's better to start with a contractor and eventually transition them into a part-time employee, depending on your situation, talk with your tax advisor, etc., because you get to test them out a little bit before you have them onboarded, and it's more difficult to fire them later and all those things. So I get it. Like that's good, but it's important to normalize it and to normalize that a lot of businesses are doing business this way. Most government contracts have subcontractors. It's a normal thing. You just got to make sure you're not crossing the line of what's legal, right? And you have to make sure you have clear expectations. You guys both have clear expectations with each other, not only in the event of a lawsuit, but also so that you can have a harmonious relationship. So you're not arguing about things throughout the time that you're working together, right? So those are some basic contracts that you have to have in place. If you're thinking employees, you replace, of course, the independent contractor agreement with the employment agreement, right? Those are some things that you definitely have to have in place. So now that, we've gone through the core agreements that you have to have at each of the three levels, we're going to go to a brief break. And after the break, I'm going to go into some next level strategies, right? Like we're going to get into you know, 300 level strategies of other things that you want to do to protect yourself as a business. All right. So stay tuned right after this break, and we're going to be getting into it. Planners Who Profit Live is our annual event that celebrates event planners of all kinds every single year, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss it. All right, this is the event to come. Bring your friend, bring your assistant, bring your associate planner to really immerse yourself in next level thinking, next level strategies, and to get refreshed for your next event season. Visit plannerswhoprofit.com PWPlive.com and register to join us for this event. The experience is phenomenal every single year. The community is truly next level, and the things that you learn are truly actionable. This is an investment both in yourself and in your business that you can't afford to miss out on, all right? So make sure that you come, bring your team, tell a friend, and we can't wait to see you in person at our very next Planners Who Profit Live. We can't wait to see you there. All right, guys. So like I said, this is the home of next level coaching for event planners. So this would not be next level if I didn't cut into something even more next level, right? So these are a couple of super bonus, like next level things to think about. Number one, insurance, right? Insurance. Your business should be insured. And I'm not even gonna lie to you, insurance is not even that expensive. It's not this like multi-$1,000 thing that you got to carry, right? For event planners. Now, if you are a florist and an event planner and an officiant, you're doing 7 jobs for one price, your insurance probably will be higher because you got to cover multiple things. But as an event planner, you can literally insure yourself for probably under $1,000. It depends on your city, depends on your state, but you can probably insure yourself for under $1,000 for most people, right? For the entire year. So that's pretty affordable. And especially considering that if you're an event planner, if you've been in this industry long enough, you know that there are a lot of venues that actually require that you present a certificate of insurance. So instead of paying, so it's like better to be insured. So you're prepared to present that, right? That's like a cost of doing business, and that's something to do. It's great because in the event of a lawsuit, of a challenge, your insurance gets involved and they can pay out in the event of that you are somehow found liable for the issue. It doesn't necessarily mean you will be found liable, but in the event that you are, then they're the ones paying out like $1 million versus you trying to figure out how you're going to pay out $1 million. And that's something that that everybody should have, right? Everybody should be insured and all that good stuff. So I'll in the resources I'll list where I get my insurance from for you to consider. But go ahead. I've been with them for many years. I've been featured on their website for Women's History Month. I love the company that I'm with. However, I want you guys to it's called Hiscox, by the way. But yeah, the link is in the description in the resources section on plannerswhoprofit.com/podcast. So make sure you go there, plannerswhoprofit.com/podcast, hit the resources section and you'll see it. But yeah, wherever you choose to go, you want to make sure that you are insured. All right. And go with that. Now, the next thing, which is a big thing, right, is when do I start looking into trademarks and copyrights and all these things for my business, right? Here's my 2 cents, right? Technically, a trademark is great for everything, right? Because then no one else can use it, and you're putting your stamp on things. I say you got to prove your business first, right? Trademarking takes time. Trademarking costs money, and I don't think that this is just me, right? I'm not a lawyer. Remember, this isn't legal advice, and I mean, most lawyers will even tell you the same thing. If you don't have anything to protect, it may not be worth it to go through the trademark process. Another thing about the trademark process is that because we've gone through it, right? We've got multiple trademarks pending. When you go through the trademark process, they're going to ask you a lot of detailed questions about what your business does, what industries it serves, what it doesn't serve. So you kind of have to be established enough to know that, right? Before you can start going after trademarks. So yes, when you're in that beginning stages, you're not making any money. It's just an idea. The first thing to do isn't to get trademarked. The first thing to do is to get clients, right? And make sure that you got separate entity and all that. But once you get to the point that you're like, man, we're doing well. Everyone knows us. We're going viral. We've got lots of traffic coming our way, and I hate to say this, but you're in a day and age where people keep trying to hack your social media accounts. We keep getting people trying to hack us. We got two-factor authentication on every single account. Y'all need to stop, but whatever. If you're in a place where people keep trying to hack into you, people keep you're getting both the good and the bad attention and people know your brand and know who you are, that's not a bad time to start to trademark, right? And to cover yourself and to make sure that you're like, yeah, this is who I am. We own the trademark. Be able to use that trademark in different places and to say, I'm solid in this, right? Another thing is that you want to be solid that this is a business you want to continue. The truth about entrepreneurship is that businesses fly up and disappear every day. They fly up and disappear a year later, right? But if you've been in this, you've been in this grind for some time, and you're like, this is something I want. I want to build it. I want to make money. I want to hand it down to my kids if they want it. I want to be able to sell it. Like this is a real business to you. then you might want to trademark it. It doesn't hurt, right? And that's something that you want to look into as well. So those are the next level strategies. Definitely the insurance, the trademarking. Trademarking, you got to work with a lawyer. There's no like contract template to download for that, but you want to reach out to a lawyer directly to work with them about trademarking. And then also with your, and of course with insurance, you purchase the insurance, but these are all ways to just cover yourself as a business owner. Make sure that, you're covering yourself in the event of a lawsuit and in the event of multiple things, right? So yeah, that covers it. Like this has been a really good podcast. We have a brief break and then I have a quick summary to close us out with a bang. All right. So stay tuned and I'll be back in just a moment. If you've been enjoying this podcast, it is time for you to join the PWP squad. And you can do that today 100% free. Visit PWP Workshop, and that'll give you everything that you need to sign up for our vault of free trainings on marketing, sales, and systems designed to get you started on your journey to your first 100K in business. So we talked about a lot of things today. We talked about incorporating and separating your business entity from your personal. We talked about your different agreements, your client agreements. We talked about non-solicitations or non-competes, right? Depending on where you are. We talked about independent contractor or employee agreements. We talked about contracting. We talked about insurance. We talked about so many things. And I hope you've enjoyed this crash course. Now, for those of you guys who are watching on Spotify, there's a Q&A. Hit the Q&A. Let us know which of these things you have covered. Let us know what your pending questions are. It just helps a lot. For those of you who are watching on other platforms, leave a comment. We love your comments. Let us know how much you enjoyed the podcast. And if you have any follow-up questions, DM us at Planners Who Profit on Instagram, on Facebook. We're happy to answer questions. We love hearing your questions. Your follow-up questions go into future podcast episodes. And of course, we will, as much as we can, answer you directly just to make sure you have an answer. All right. Like I said, make sure if you've enjoyed this and if you're like, man, I love what she's saying, but I need resources to help me actually move forward, go ahead, visit plannerswhoprofit.com/podcast. Okay. When you get there, there's a resources section. Visit the resources section, click, go through, use the resources. The resources that I've mentioned are there. And there are other resources from other podcast episodes. Make sure you go there, use it, use those links that lets those people know that we sent you. And yeah, and in many of those cases, you also get some pretty sweet discounts, which is also great. And we're really excited to have you here. So with that being said, as you're building, as you're growing, as you're trying to go after new sales, you want to make sure you're protecting what you're building. Okay. The worst thing you can do is build something great and have one thing happen that brings it all down. All right. So you want to make sure you're protecting yourself. And I'm excited as you continue to build your business. Leave your feedback, leave the comments, subscribe, like, do all the things. And we can't wait to see you in the next podcast episode. So cheers. Have an amazing and eventful day. And we'll catch you in the next episode.